Welcome back to the AI Driven Marketer. I'm Dan Sanchez. My friends call me Danchez, and we are on a journey in 2024 to master AI so we can make the most of marketing because we all know that marketing always has more to do. So with AI, we're hoping to leverage it so that we can do more with less in order to catch up. Today, I'm excited to talk to Liza Adams, who is going to be helping us break down our bottlenecks and using AI to fix the things that are slowing us down in marketing. So, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Someone recommended you on LinkedIn, and after checking out your feed and what you were talking about, I was really impressed. I'm like, oh my gosh, got to have her on the show. After we had our pre-interview, I was like even more impressed. I was like, no wonder why you're speaking at MACON. Like, I'm like, you have the goods, and I'm excited about this episode and ready to get started.
Thank you so
So
much.
it's
I
okay
do
with you.
learn from many people, and I try to apply them where I can. And I love the AI community. With a lot of sharing, we're able to use AI responsibly and learn from each other.
So if it's okay with you, let's dive into the deep end and see where it goes. I'd love to know, like, as you're advising and consulting a lot of different companies as a fractional CMO, as an AI advisor, what are the kind of issues you're usually coming up against? Are they usually marketing strategy issues, tactical issues, tech issues? Like, what kind of bottlenecks are you usually coming across as an advisor?
Yeah. So my work spans fractional CMO work. So with fractional CMO work, you are essentially the CMO of the business, right? So you are in charge of everything from strategy all the way to execution and leading that team and ultimately representing that team to the board. On the other end of the spectrum, I am an AI advisor. So as an AI advisor, I advise CMOs and their marketing teams. And that could be a wide gamut of challenges, right? It could be very simple as inspire our teams with what's possible with AI.
Yeah.
So, that might be, hey, we're simply using it for content creation to create blogs or summarize reports. Is that it, Lisa? Is that all we should think AI for? To help us on this journey, we need to scale with AI and we need to go from exploration to integration. How do we do that as a team? And how do we ultimately not just do this for the sake of marketing, but also for the sake of the business, because we are the growth engine for the business? So I see a wide range of challenges that AI can address. And as a fractional CMO, it keeps me real because the use cases that I tend to talk about on LinkedIn or in podcasts like this one, they're real, right? We're addressing true challenges that marketers and businesses are going through. And then we take those best practices and take a lot of that experience and apply it into my advising workshops and roles.
It's interesting when I'm talking to people, it is a pretty common question of like, well, what can I be doing with this? And usually I'm like, well, where are you stuck right now? And then we'll start there. It's
That's
kind of like
right. That's
AI is
right.
this general tool that can cover so many different problems. So you might as well just start with the problem that's slowing down the most, right? Because that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck out of it. Like, if we can fix this one thing, how would that change your business, right? Is kind of how it goes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Or do you see any trends as far as what businesses are running into the most, or is it just kind of depend? It's different from business to business.
It's different by business. However, the natural inclination is to go straight into productivity. Like, how do we get more things done, or how do we make this thing go faster? My team is overburdened. Is there a way for AI to help and take on some of these mundane and repetitive tasks? So
Yeah.
there's a group of use cases and a set of problems that tend to address productivity challenges. And then there's another set of problems that tend to address we need better quality. Because of lack of time, lack of resources, we don't have the bandwidth nor the time to really think deeply, right? When we do research, when we have to do interviews, we don't have time to do all of the data analysis. We don't have the tools to do that. We need new insights to inform decision making. So just better outputs. And then the last one is, now I see less of this because there's so much focus on, the productivity aspect of it and then making things better. I do hope that more will start to lean in on making things different. So now we're in the innovation aspect of this. It's not just making what we currently have better in terms of faster or better quality. It's now thinking about things in a very different way. So those are the three buckets, if you might, that you could think about it. And it's like faster, better, and then different or
Yeah.
innovative.
It seems like that's a natural progression. Like
Right.
you'd probably, if you're starting to get AI and train your whole team in it, naturally the easiest thing to do is just to be able to do things faster.
Faster. That's
And then,
right.
of course, as you get better at dealing with AI, and I think everybody goes through this cycle with AI where they actually prompt enough to begin knowing how to prompt in a way that you can get better outcomes than you would have gotten naturally. Not only
Mhm.
that faster, but you move quick, you get better. And then, of course, once you really start to master the faster and the better, you start to think of like, I don't know, you
Different.
start getting eyes to see like, oh, I wonder if, and you start asking bigger questions of like, now this whole new thing is possible we couldn't have done before.
That's
But
right.
you wouldn't have got there unless you had learned how to go faster, gotten better. And then that's kind of the training you need in order to be innovative with it.
That's right. That's right.
What are some case studies that you're proud of that you've addressed with teams now that you've seen all the way through? You guys found the problem, found how AI can become a solution to the problem, and implemented it, and it worked remarkably well.
Yeah. I'm going to share with you a use case that we did, my team and I did when I was a fractional CMO for a company that had significant growth during COVID because a lot of their customers went, obviously many of us started working from home, and their business was one of those that really thrived during COVID because it enabled remote capabilities and things of that nature. But post COVID, it was really tough, right? And the company started to think about, what do we need to do to grow this business, to identify more opportunities? And the natural inclination of the business was to expand into new markets, go into more segments, identify new personas and pursue them. But the challenge is, when you start going into more markets, you now start to spread yourself so thin. And you risk not being able to serve all those markets super well. There's a danger in that, right? You spread your resources, you spread your budget so thin
Oh
that you
yeah,
can't serve any
yeah,
one or two well. And there's
yeah,
a risk of, increased risk of churn.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the idea really is to not expand into new segments. It's to pick your top two or three segments that you can serve the best, because nobody else can do what you do. You have exceptional product market fit. And because you're so good at it, you could do it profitably. So we actually use AI to determine which top segments of the market we should go after,
Mm.
rather than identifying new market segments in addition to what we have. Right? We were actually narrowing the number of segments that we should pursue. So we used AI by I've explained this in one of the newsletters that I launched in just the last couple of weeks. We have this framework by which we evaluated the segments across a number of criteria. It could be market growth, market size, competitive intensity, strength of partnerships, a fit with roadmap,
Yeah.
and evaluated each one of those segments by each one of the criteria.
So you came up with all these segments. Did you give each one a score of how to
That's
rank
right.
them? Okay.
So
Did AI help you come up with the segments and the scoring factors?
So we came up with the segments because
Okay.
we had an idea of which segments we wanted, right? And
Yeah.
let's just say there were 8 of them.
Yep.
And then we had our criteria. And then what we did, let's just say the market size was one of the criteria. we used market sizing data, analyst reports data to do that evaluation. And we did a forced ranking scenario with ChatGPT. So basically, fed non-sensitive data. We had to redact some of the market sizing information, fed it into ChatGPT, and we asked it to do a forced ranking. So largest market size gets an 8 because we were evaluating 8 market segments. Lowest market size gets a 1.
Yep.
And ultimately, we asked it to do a heat map. So the 8 got a red and the 1 got a blue kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And you kind of do that same thing for each of the criteria, right? You did
Okay.
that
So
with
lowest
market
score wins then.
growth. Yep.
Yep.
And then ultimately at the bottom, it had a total,
Yep.
which allowed us to see across multiple criteria which one was the best. So let me just pause there to make sure that that was landing with you.
Yeah. No. So did you have? I'm seeing it. You just uploaded to ChatGPT these reports, redacted some information. You probably upload them as PDF.
Yep.
And then you just write like one long mega prompt that said like, okay, here's what we're doing. Here's what we want to know. Here's the context, the information. Here's the here's the categories, the criteria, and the segments.
Nope.
Now go and do it and just report back. Or did
Actually,
you do it in multiple
not
steps?
one mega prompt. It's multiple little
Yeah.
prompts,
Okay. So you
right?
chain prompted it to go step by step and to think through it.
Step by
Yep.
step. And there's value in going step by step in
Yeah.
smaller bite-sized prompts, right? Because you
Yep.
can course correct if it doesn't understand.
Hmm.
It is also a good way to check AI's work because you're only checking little things versus checking a whole heck of a lot of things, right?
Yep.
So definitely step by step. Like for example, that first prompt was, I'm going to give you the market size for these 8 segments. Read this document or read this Excel spreadsheet, understand it well. Then I will give you further instructions. Okay, first prompt. Second prompt, now that you understand all of that, do a forced ranking based on market size and show that to me in a table. And I told it, I want the segments on the column and the market size is the row. So it gave me basically a row with the forced ranking. Then I said, all right, color code this thing and create a heat map just for that row. Then it just did that, right?
Yep.
So that now we have one. And I said, now I'm going to go to the second criteria.
Yep.
Now we're going to go to market growth and then did the same process.
Okay.
After 8 criteria, I said, put them all together, put all the rows together in a table. So now we have a table, a matrix that is color coded based on all the forced rankings. And then I said, give me a total with weights that are equal across the different criteria. So now you have at the bottom a total, an aggregation, and you can see which one won out across all of the different criteria. You can also say, oh, by the way, I want to apply different weights because it's more important to me. Market growth is more important to me than number of reference customers, right?
Yep.
So you can actually play with the weights and then it will give you a different result. So let me pause there.
This is such a fantastic process, and I feel like is one of those things that probably need to be shouted from the rooftops, because I feel like the decay or the killer of many businesses is operational complexity, right? Because you're successful on one thing, but naturally line extension comes in. You're serving way too many products to way too many markets, and it slows down and kills many companies. Which is why when consultants and fractional CMOs like yourself get in, one of the first things we see is kind of like, hey, like the easiest way to profit is just by eliminating work that you're currently doing. Not even launching new stuff. Just stop doing the stuff that's killing your profit and you win. But this actually gives people a way to, I don't know about you, but like I've recommended that many times and people are like, well, yeah, but we need more revenue. You're like, you don't understand, by doing less, serving less people is the path to revenue.
That's right.
And this process is essentially given others a way to prove it empirically, or at least show like, hey, no, like it's not just me guessing. It's like here's a path you can take that proves empirically that there are better segments. And if you focus on these segments, we can grow it. So once you're able to kind of prove that these segments are better than these segments, what steps do you take?
Yeah. It To your point, the reason we did it is, we could decide to add more segments, and we would now peanut butter, and we were just not convinced that we were going to get to to the revenue goals, right? So we said, hey, there's no harm trying this. Let's narrow the aperture and figure it out. But that was only the first step, Dan. That was product marketing, doing our little table, using data to craft this table. We needed to get alignment, right? We can't just say, hey, this is what ChatGPT created for us. Here's the heat map.
Yeah, yeah,
Therefore, these top three segments are the segments we're going to go after. We went to the executive team, right? Because the executive team had different views on which segments were the top ones.
yeah,
And, their hypotheses may have been right in one or two dimensions, but not right across eight dimensions. Now that they saw the
yeah,
matrix, let's have a conversation, right? Let's have a conversation around the different weights, the different forced rankings, let's debate these things. And that is where I would argue that that was the most valuable part of the process.
yeah.
The framework was foundational for them to have a conversation, but that debate within the executive team to ultimately drive some alignment was the most valuable thing in there. But even after that debate, healthy debate, let's say we came up with like the top three, the next phase of the process wasn't, all right, let's tell everybody in the company that these are our top three and let's pivot to these three. No, we took another 2 to 3 weeks and said, let's validate our hypotheses and
There
our
we go.
data with the market, right? Let's talk to stakeholders, to partners. Let's ensure that we got the competitive information right. Let's talk with customers and prospects. Did some of that work, and then ultimately came back again as an executive team, changed some things based on what happened in the validation process, and then ultimately aligned. And then once we get alignment, I would argue it was probably one of the most strategic things that marketing can do, because it avoided, not a whole company from CEO to frontline managers know exactly the segments that we're going to go after. If somebody has a wild idea about another segment, no, we all aligned on these three segments, right? And then from a marketing perspective, we knew exactly how to allocate our budget and where to allocate it. These are the three segments that we're going to go after. This is our ICP. We identify personas within these segments, and we will craft campaigns specifically for these segments because they are the ones that we can serve the best from the criteria that we chose. It makes it so much easier for marketing to prove its worth rather than having to guess or having to peanut butter its money across the board.
I feel like marketing always has good insights to what products to go with or kill, but I usually find that marketing is not usually the one in the executive suite to actually make choices around that. And I don't know, I think it's just because there's probably just not enough empirical evidence that marketing brings, but with this process, it actually makes it possible to bring the empirical evidence you need to drive the conversation in a really productive and profitable way. So I love that you're using AI in order to make this process simpler, because certainly you could do it by hand, but gosh, it's a lot of work to create that one report. Doing this
Yeah,
manually is exhausting, but AI is actually able to go through, read it, and actually do analysis and explain why, so that you can double check it to make sure it actually gives you a good report. And I'll
that's
make
right.
sure to link to, you said this was a newsletter. I think you have a blog post on this now.
Yeah, I have a blog post on it, but the newsletter
Okay.
goes more specifically into the process that that we went through.
Well, I'll share a link to this case study if anybody wants to break it down and replicate it. I know I will be, because this is such a common problem I've run into, and I'd love to know exactly step by step. We just heard it, but I'm like, but I'm going to need to reference it later, so I'll be linking back to that.
Yeah,
What else have you found AI to be useful for?
yeah. So once we got down to the three segments, it got super easy because now we have alignment. So we actually used AI to develop our campaign strategy. So, if let's just pick one of the segments, right? we said, all right, for this segment, help us brainstorm with us. So we used it as a thought partner. And in that thought partnership, there's a collaboration. It needed to understand our market, it needed to understand our positioning, our messaging, it needed to understand our personas. So all of that work that we did, we had to feed into AI.
Yeah.
Again, redacting it and taking out sensitive information. People always say, hey, you're feeding it competitive information and messaging. I'm like, they would find it on our website anyway.
Yeah.
And in fact, if AI wants to learn that that's our positioning and that's our messaging and that's our value prop, awesome. Feed it to the market, right? So, like, you know, I understand that the competitors might see that, but they will anyway, because that's what they
Yeah.
will see on
Yeah.
websites
Yeah.
or on customer review sites.
Yeah.
So feeding that information around your market strategy, your positioning, your messaging, your value props, your personas is so critical in helping AI understand, giving it context of what
Yeah.
you want it to do, right? And then really thinking about, all right, AI, let's brainstorm on what the campaigns might look like in support of this segment. And here are the three goals that we're trying to achieve. And given all that context, it begins to give you some ideas. Right? Sometimes it's not quite right, but then you guide it to give you the ideas. And we actually came up with three campaigns. One of them was one that we never thought about, that came from AI. From that discussion, from that, we used it as a thought partner in
Yeah.
essence. It this is where I feel like AI made it better. That the first process, it sped it up, right? But it also made it better. This one sped it up, made it better again. And then ultimately, once we had that idea, now we use AI again. All right, help us to further craft this campaign. What does it look like? Here's the buyer's journey. How would you design this campaign? So what AI does for us, Dan, is it helps us get started
Yeah.
quickly, right? It like gives us a first draft. Once you give it a lot of context, a lot of really good insights and information, good first draft. And oftentimes that's the hard part, like just getting it lifted off the ground. So rather than lifting it off the ground, now we're lifting it from our knees because AI's helped us to lift it off the ground a little bit, right? And then
Yeah.
now what we need to do, it's easier to edit than to start from scratch. And
Always.
AI allows us to not start from scratch.
I find that the strategic documents are actually useful for the first time. How many times have we written marketing plans or persona guides or positioning statements that just sit in a folder in Google
Sit
Drive
there.
somewhere, be seen once and never again? Right. Until we're like, don't we have some personas? Oh, yeah, we did that as an exercise 8 months ago. You're like, oh, gosh, but nobody's looked at it since. AI keeps it front and center, though. Do you use custom GPTs to attach it to, or do you just upload it most of the time?
No, we're starting to use a lot of custom GPTs.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking about that. We actually did a custom GPT for the strategic one that I talked
Mhm.
about, where we created a heat map because we wanted to be able to use the custom GPT when the executives were having a debate. While they were having a debate, the forced rankings were changing. So we were doing it in AI in the
Yeah.
custom GPT as they were changing the forced rankings,
Yeah.
right? So the executives were seeing how the matrix was changing. So that's one custom GPT. Um, the other custom GPTs are a bit more tactical, like
Yeah.
for copywriting, for, you know, to your point, like copywriting, you put brand tone and voice in there. You
Yeah.
put persona information in there, right? Okay, hey, we have this persona Dan. We're going to do an email for him. This is the goal. And then we don't need to explain what the Dan
Yep.
persona is
Yeah.
because it's
It's
in the
already in there.
knowledge, right? Here's the goal. And I need 3 emails to Dan at the top, middle, and bottom of the funnel. Please draft it. Now, again, lifting it off the ground for us. All we need to do is edit from there.
Yeah. I love loading. I just did this for a client just yesterday and I loaded it. I actually did an intake interview with this client just to ask them all the basic information. They were like, what are you asking? I'm like, what industry are you in? Who's your target audience? What's your story? What's your mission? What are the brand elements that make you weird? Like just I probably asked 50 questions, unloaded it all into an Excel sheet, and then I upload it all to a custom GPT with some other basic information about their business and their products and different things. And now I just query that all the time. It's a great starting point because, like you said, and now I can go and take things like, hey, I love this email from a totally different industry email, but I want one like it in this client's industry. But use this as an example. It's like you constantly have all the strategic docs and everything. Then you could take inspiration from totally other places and be like, hey, mash these two together. And it just does wonderfully with that.
I love that because, Dan, I've said that AI will force us to be more strategic,
Yeah.
and it will force us to be more authentically human, right? This example that you're just talking about, it's forcing us to really be strategic because absent those strategic documents, well, AI is just going to give you average information. You're just going to be creating content that's a result of what it can find on the web. It's not truly personalized and relevant to the market that you're going after, that you can serve the best because of who you are. So I think it's such a gift to marketers. It will
Yeah.
highlight our strategic value, and if we're not doing that, it will force us to be strategic.
I love that AI gives a way for strategy to actually be utilized because you often find that there's a disconnect between strategy and tactics, and this actually bridges the gap in a way because you don't have to depend on just people's memory of the strategy now. I'm pretty sure like I won't force people, but like I'll just be like, hey, always start with this custom GPT when writing anything. That way I know all the objectives are taken into account each time, at least by AI, because AI will always remember, right? I
Yes.
mean, it hallucinates sometimes, but as long as you're giving crystal clear context, I'm like, it doesn't forget easily. Humans hallucinate way more than AI does. it's, it's a human problem. So I love that you're using this to like guide strategy and bring strategy back to the forefront of the tactical side of marketing.
I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah, I don't know. It just as somebody who I jump between these two fields all the time, between the clouds and the dirt of marketing. So it's fun to find a process to pull it together with everybody.
And
Are
then I love the way you framed it, that how many times have we seen these strategy documents be created? We spend a lot of time and a lot of money doing them, and sometimes we bring in outside consultants, right? They do tons of interviews, and then they do persona development, and
yep,
they identify our ICP. We spend tens and even hundreds of thousands of dollars. It gets presented, and then it sits
yep,
in OneDrive or Google Drive, right? And
yep.
never to be seen again. But now I have so many clients where we are feeding that into the work that we do consistently. And in the case of custom GPTs, that's the benchmark, right? Like, it's in there. Without that, what does AI have to go by? Nothing. So I think it's such a good call out. I didn't realize it until you said it. You said it. How many times have these documents just sat there
Almost every time.
being not useful? Now they're front and center. Without them, it's bad marketing.
Yep. I'm a producer for a different AI show around sales, and they have even worse problems because they'll make quarterly objectives of things they want sales to push. But of course, you want it to be pushed 2 weeks ago usually, but they have issues where they just can't even because you got a whole sales force and you got to coach them, you got to train them, and then you got to reinforce it. It's not enough to do a day long training with all the salespeople on the new thing they need to know. You have to reinforce it and then coach it. Like it's like 6, 9, 10 months before it's actually being done,
Yeah.
which is so slow in today's market. So now AI is making it possible to bring it forward for them, and that's something the salespeople are working on. But I'm like, it's working for marketers too, because we set objectives, we set standards, and it just wasn't happening without repeated training and reinforcement, which most of us never did because there was always some fire to put out with marketing. but now it's possible, and it's just exciting because like strategy will actually be useful again.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit more. Like, do you have any other case studies? These are two fantastic ones. What else have you done and seen so far that people should know about?
Yeah, so let's just keep going down, right? So okay, we've got our strategy, we have our target segments, we've got our personas, we've got our campaign. So let's create some assets. So what I love about creating assets is talking in the language that customers use and leveraging data that we have where they're actually talking to us or talking to the masses. So what I'm referring to is, customer reviews on review sites. These are customers or prospects that are reviewing us and our competitors. There's a lot of good insights in there. And they're using language that they use
Yeah.
in those reviews, they use in their business. Any kind of sales call transcript, right? Like from Gong,
Yeah.
like take that. Any kind of customer review from creating testimonials or case studies. Uh, when we do customer success calls or customer support calls, there's
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
insights from all those things, right? And let's just say you've got your messaging for persona Dan. Persona Dan has these three pillars because there are three pain points. And let's make this example simple.
Yep.
Let's take some reviews from G2
Yep.
review site, right? And we take all of our customer reviews and we say, here's a table for persona Dan with his three pain points and our value propositions. Create the messaging that we would need for Dan, and give me proof points for each one of the messages based on what you can infer from the customer reviews, and use exactly the language and the words that the customers are using. Do not make it up. Do not paraphrase. Fill out this table. Now, there might be 17,000 reviews, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this thing's going to comb through it. It's going to look at our pillars. It's going to try to match up. One might be around efficiency, quality, or ROI. Then it's going to start matching it up, right?
Yeah.
Then we'll see what it comes up with. We need to double check its work. And then we could say, all right, for those proof points, see if you can find qualitative proof points or qualitative improvements that we can include in our messaging. So pull it out, right?
Yeah.
It's all public information. It's G2. Like anybody can go in there, Capterra or Trust Radius. So see what we can find and then use that. I think we get so enamored in marketing, Dan, where we speak. We like the itties and the ables, flexibility, scalability,
Yeah.
all sorts highly scalable, AI driven, all sorts of things when the customers don't talk that way. And then when we look at the customer reviews and we just use their language, we're mirroring them. There's this saying that if the customer doesn't understand or they see language that they don't use, that the automatic impression is, oh, it must not be for me.
Right.
And we don't want that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So mirroring the language is going to be super important, and there's no better place to find it than actual customer speak, actual customer reviews and interviews and transcripts, and it could give you a really good head start.
I feel really dumb. I'm like, how have I not done this already? Because I know this kind of stuff. I literally did a podcast just on Grok. I don't know, Grok 2 just came out, which is kind of like it's almost GPT-4 level, but it's attached to X, aka Twitter, right? And I don't know, it's probably a combination of some old algorithm tech and AI, because you can ask it like, hey, what's currently trending with insert target market? And its ability to go and find it and then analyze it to find out what's trending, and it'll bring the receipts, it'll bring the tweets that it's pulling from for you to understand the market, what the market's talking about in real time is really good. But it hadn't occurred to me yet to just scrape all the reviews from something like G2 and then have it do analysis on pain points and then to bring examples with it. It makes me want to like do that immediately after this interview, actually, because I can think of like 3 clients that I'm like, how have I not done that already? It's such a quick and easy thing that you can
Easy.
do. You don't even have to copy and paste it. You can literally just go to, hey, do a search on Bing for G2 for this company and report back, because it can do web searching through Bing and go
Yeah.
find it.
Well, and then if you just take that use case one step further into sales, because you were going down that path, right? Taking customer reviews, you could say, based on the customer reviews, what are the top objections
Hmm.
about our product? Heck, that's your template for your objection handling
Yep. Yep.
document for sales, right? And then you feed it your value propositions, your positioning, your messaging, your differentiation, and you say, all right, take a stab at answering those objections
Yep.
based on what we've got.
Yep.
Again, gets you started on a draft for crafting your objection handling FAQ for sales.
Yep. Question: when you're feeding it something like G2 reviews are just long and extensive. There's usually only dozens of them per company. Sometimes it's a very popular product, you have hundreds. When it comes to companies that might have like hundreds of reviews and they're like short, maybe Amazon reviews, how do you validate that AI's doing a good quantitative analysis? Because some of the problems might be coming up more frequently than others, versus it like just hovering down on like maybe the first or the last one that they might give a special attention to, even though it was only mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
Do you check to see if that's consistent?
Yeah. I try not to give it too many because, at least in today's versions of the
Yeah.
AI, and I'm not deep in the technical reasons why it can and can't, right? But there's also this notion of the context window
Yep.
and
Yep.
how big it is. So, Gemini's got like 2 million, right? So, but I've not tried to use Gemini for this. I'm using ChatGPT, right? So 128 K tokens. The other aspect of this is it's not very good at math. So once I start needing very precise information, then I really don't trust it. So I try, here are a couple of things. Let's just say there's 17,000 reviews. I don't give it 17,000 reviews. I,
Yep.
prob- I probably will narrow down the window to, all right, instead of the last year, just give me the last 3 months.
Okay.
Now we don't have 17,000 reviews. Now we only have 2,000,
Yeah,
right?
you maybe take the
Okay,
most recent ones.
most recent
Recency is
ones.
always pretty
Yeah.
big good way to filter
Or,
it.
you know, in Capterra and G2, you could also say, I only want the enterprise ones. I only want the healthcare ones.
I see.
Start narrowing it down, right? Because we do have an ICP. Because if you took everything, this thing's huge. So start, really go down to the segmentation to see if you could narrow it down. And if you still can't narrow it down small enough, then what I do is like chunking it down into pieces. Like do do the do the first 500. I want to get insights from that. Do the second 500. Give me insights on that. And then see if you can combine them.
Mhm.
Insights from the
Yeah.
first one, insights from
Yeah.
the second one, and then combine,
Yep.
if that makes sense.
That's yeah, no, that's how everybody gets around the context windows. You have to do it in chunks and then
In chunks.
summary and then combine the chunks,
And it
or
also
combine the
helps
summaries.
for
Yeah.
it helps for checking it too, right?
Mhm.
Because I can't check like something super big, but I can check something that's, maybe 1 or 2 pages of a spreadsheet.
Yeah. And that is a way to actually quantify it, because if it's giving a summary of highlights of whatever you were looking for, whether it's pain points or like things that they liked about the product, doesn't matter, whatever you're looking for, and it gives a summary, and then you have it do maybe 5 sets of summaries. Well, now it can quantitatively look to see like, well, which pain, maybe if you went like 3 months and then 3 months back and then 3 months back and 3 months back, you could see what's trending across the year and actually quantitatively know like, hey, like this insight is coming up in each summary, therefore this is a thing,
Yeah.
and it continues to trend.
The other way to check this, and we've done this fairly consistently now is same prompts, same data, do it with ChatGPT, same prompts, same data, do it with Claude. See if there's a vast difference in what they're recommending in terms of value propositions and what they're inferring from the reviews. If there's a vast difference, somebody is hallucinating somewhere, right? And that gives you a kind of a mental check. But if they're relatively similar, same trends, same value props, then you could feel a little bit more confident because now you've got two
Yeah.
AIs, checking each other.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to do it. I tend not to ever use Claude or any of the other AIs. I'm pretty committed to ChatGPT just because I find learning how to use one is like learning how to use them all. I just don't want to pay for them all, so I just stick with ChatGPT. I'm hoping eventually it'll be Microsoft Copilot because then it'll integrate with more stuff. I don't feel like Copilot's ready for prime time quite yet, but it's getting close.
Well, then I will tell you that for as much as I use it, I would say that at least for my purposes, Claude is a better thought partner.
Yeah,
It's a bit more collaborative, a bit more analytical in my mind. I truly just like the way it thinks about strategy, right? Like if I ask it for different perspectives, it challenges me actually,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, ChatGPT kind of it's less collaborative. It just answers a question rather than Claude tends to ask me questions. And I like
yeah.
that. Before
That's
I answer
interesting.
your
Yeah,
question, it asks for clarification. So
yeah.
anyway, you might want to try it.
I keep hearing that Claude's like a step above. I just expect that ChatGPT would be launching number 5 or its 5th version soon. So I'm just like, I'm just gonna stick with
You just
that
wait. Yeah.
because I'm
But
going to move over to Claude and have to move all my custom GPTs over to like the new thing. And I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna
that,
leave them because
that
I have
is
like
the
dozens of
problem.
them, and I'm like, I ain't moving them.
That
I'm not
is the
gonna copy
problem.
paste them over.
That
Yeah.
Claude, you can't do custom GPTs with Claude, right?
Can't you
So,
now? I thought they released a mechanism for that. Didn't they call
oh,
it
did
gems
they
or some
just recently?
gems? Or maybe that was Gemini's thing. I think they do. I think they do have a custom GPT thing with Claude now. At least that's what I
Awesome.
heard. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Whether you can do all the other little tiny things, I don't know. Like, can you upload PDFs? Can you have it scrape the web? Can it do Excel sheets? I don't know, but I've
Now,
heard it can
Claude,
do GPTs.
at least today, as far as I know, Claude still can't browse the web. So if it's doing a custom GPT but it can't browse the web, we got a little
Yeah,
bit of a challenge.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on this episode. I've learned a lot, and I feel like I've been unloaded like a full course meal, like a 5 course meal with like how to really unpack a whole strategy from beginning to middle to end.
And,
And this is one of my favorite episodes so far. I think
oh,
you've really
thank
challenged me on how to
you.
use how to use AI on a strategic level and not just a tactical level, which is what I usually tend to gravitate towards. I like the strategy, but you've really given me a framework for how to like fit it together to actually use it to really speed up and quantify and do better strategy. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure. This was so much fun. And you've given me like little new analogies, little tidbits that kind of crystallize it for people and make it more relatable. And half the time, it's really just that, right? Like, when you say something different and then now the ideas crystallized and
Oh
they're
yeah.
like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that that's what you're talking about. So I really like this notion of no strategy document will now sit and collect dust, right?
Yep.
It is now the 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 guts of what powers AI to deliver personalized and highly relevant responses and content for us.
So where can people to go to learn more from you, to find some more about these the case studies that you've mentioned, and connect with you online?
Yeah, so I post liberally on LinkedIn. And the reason I do that is I'm so passionate about elevating the strategic value of marketing. And like I said initially, I do feel that this is the gift that will turn perceptions on its head that marketing is primarily a tactical function. We are a strategic function. Our North Star is deeply understanding the customers. And absent that, it's just marketing for the sake of marketing, right? So that is my passion, and that's why I'm sharing more broadly. The other thing is this AI community. I'm indebted to it. I learned so much from so many people. Like what you hear from me is as a result of learnings from so many. Like you just gave me a bunch of key learnings today, right? And this is one of those where the AI companies are building to create God when it comes to technology, but no one is really teaching us the best practices because there are no best practices. It is up to us users to determine how to apply AI responsibly. So, when I share, this is like part of my gratitude. I'm sharing because so many people have shared with me. So LinkedIn is one. The other one is my website, growthpath.net. And my work is to inspire people with what's possible. And if I can help, reach out to me.
And of course, all the links to these will be in the description if you want to jump over to them and learn more. Thank you so much again for joining me.
Thank you, Dan. It was
Thank you so much for listening to the AI Driven Marketer. If this show was any good, please give it a 5-star or whatever star rating you think it deserves on the podcast app that you're listening to, and tap that thumbs up button on YouTube. And if you want to dive deeper into AI and you're still not sure if you've mastered the fundamentals, go to my free AI course at aidrivenmarketer.com and take a look. Learn the fundamentals, and you will never have to look for a prompt cheat sheet again. 5 video series, and you'll even find that I've customized the course so it's hyper personalized for you, your role, and the people you're marketing to. Take a look at it, and let's get started so we can do more with AI today.